I never imagined betrayal could feel so silent. Not the loud, crashing kind you see in movies with screaming, shattered glass and slammed doors, but the quiet kind that presses down on your chest until breathing itself becomes a chore. That night started like any other. I thought it was going to be a celebration, a chance for my wife and me to step away from routine and laugh with friends. Instead, it became the night my marriage cracked open and spilled its truth in front of everyone. Party. Are you ready? I asked, adjusting the collar of my shirt in the hallway mirror. My wife Hannah emerged from the bedroom in a dress I hadn't seen before. It was navy blue, hugging her waist in a way that made my throat dry. She looked radiant, hair pinned neatly, her perfume floating lightly into the air between us. For a second, I was reminded of the woman I married 10 years ago. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Ready. I didn't notice the distance in her tone then. I didn't question why she'd bought a new dress without mentioning it. I simply admired her and thought, God, I'm lucky. We drove to the party, a company gathering hosted by one of her co-workers. I worked in finance, she worked in marketing. Different worlds, but I tried to keep up with her stories about deadlines, campaigns, and the tight-knit circle of colleagues who often turned into weekend drinking buddies. When we arrived, the house was buzzing with music and laughter. Warm light spilled through the windows, and people milled about with glasses of wine in hand. Hannah slipped easily into conversations, her laughter effortless, while I hung near her side, sipping beer and shaking hands with faces I barely knew. Then I noticed him. The hug. He stood near the bar, tall, confident, the kind of man who carries himself like the world bends just slightly to make space for him. His name, I later learned, was Daniel. He wasn't just a co-worker. He was the one Hannah often referred to as the genius strategist in her team. When Hannah saw him, her entire body shifted. Her posture straightened. Her lips parted into a wider smile than she had given anyone else that night. And then she hugged him. Not a polite, brief hug. Not the kind you give in passing at an office party. She wrapped her arms around him and held on. Her cheek pressed to his chest, her eyes closed for a second longer than comfort allowed. Something inside me twisted. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe I was being insecure, reading too much into it. But even as they separated, her hand lingered on his arm, and the way he looked at her, it wasn't just professional. I forced a smile when he finally turned to me. You must be Michael, he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm, almost smug. And you're Daniel, I replied evenly. Hannah laughed nervously. Oh, I talk about everyone from work. Don't make it weird. But it already was. A screen. An hour later, after small talk and awkward attempts to blend in, the host announced a fun surprise. They were going to project a slideshow of candid photos taken throughout the past year of office events, trips, and parties. Everyone gathered in the living room as the lights dimmed and the screen flickered to life. Laughter erupted at goofy snapshots. Halloween costumes, karaoke nights, late-night pizza runs at the office. And then the picture appeared. Hannah and Daniel. The two of them seated at a restaurant booth, leaning close. His hand resting on hers across the table. It wasn't a group photo. It wasn't an office event. It was intimate. Too intimate. My heart thudded so loud I was afraid people could hear it. Someone in the back chuckled. You guys look like a couple there. The room laughed lightly, but I couldn't. My gaze was locked on Hannah, whose face drained of color. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. Oh, we were just brainstorming late. Nothing like that. Daniel smirked, saying nothing, and the silence that followed was heavier than any denial she could muster. The confrontation. The moment the slideshow ended, I excused myself to the patio. I needed air, space, anything to stop my chest from caving in. Hannah followed minutes later, her heels clicking against the wooden deck. Michael, wait. I turned on her. How long? She froze. What? How long have you been seeing him? My voice shook, not from rage but from the deep, gutting ache of betrayal. Her lips parted, closed, opened again. It's not what you think. I laughed bitterly. Then tell me what I saw. Tell me why you hugged him like that. Tell me why you looked at him like I haven't seen you look at me in years. Her silence was the answer I already knew. Tears welled in her eyes, but they felt like poison to me. She whispered, "It started a few months ago. I didn't mean for it to." "Stop," I said, holding up a hand. "Don't dress it up. Don't tell me you didn't mean it. You chose it." She reached for me, but I stepped back. For the first time in a decade, I didn't want her touch. The ride home. The drive was wordless. She sat curled in the passenger seat, staring out the window as the streetlights slid across her face in harsh, fleeting stripes. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white. Every memory we had together replayed like cruel film reels. The day we met, the proposal, our first apartment. Were all those moments now stained, or had she already started erasing me long before Daniel? At home, she finally broke the silence. "Michael, please. We can fix this. It was a mistake." I turned to her slowly, my voice low. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was a choice. Every time you texted him, met him, touched him, you chose it over me." Her face crumpled. "I love you." I stared at her, hollow. "No. You love the comfort I give you. The stability. But him, you loved him differently. And that's the part that kills me." Sleepless nights. The nights that followed blurred into one another. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, while she cried herself to sleep beside me. My chest ached with a hollow pressure I couldn't name. People often say betrayal feels like anger, but for me it was grief. Grieving the woman I thought she was. Grieving the life I thought we had. During the day she tried, making coffee for me, leaving notes on the counter asking about my work. But each gesture felt rehearsed, desperate. I couldn't unsee that photo. I couldn't forget that hug. The decision. 2 weeks later, I stood in the kitchen with the divorce papers in hand. My signature already marked the bottom. When she saw them, her knees buckled, and she gripped the counter. "Michael, no. Please. We can go to counseling. We can fight for this." I shook my head slowly. "You already fought for something. But it wasn't us." Her sobs filled the room, but I felt strangely calm. Numb, maybe. My love for her had been replaced with something unrecognizable, a mixture of sorrow and acceptance. I whispered, "You hugged him like he was your world, Hannah. And that screen didn't expose you to them. It exposed you to me." I left that night, suitcase in hand, stepping into the cool air that smelled faintly of rain. The street was quiet, the kind of silence that usually comforted me. This time it felt like a new beginning, painful but necessary. As I drove away, I realized the truth. Betrayal doesn't just end a marriage. It ends the illusion. It forces you to face what you've been avoiding. And though my heart ached, though I knew the road ahead would be lonely, I also knew I deserved more than a woman whose love could be given away so easily. I deserved a hug that felt like home, not one that exposed everything.